Welcome, everyone, to another amazing episode of the 100% podcast, where yes, you are 100% fucked up, but still simultaneously, you are 100% lovable. And nothing that anyone has done to you or that you've done changes or even diminishes not even 1% of how truly lovable you are and deserving of only good. I am your host, Chaya Garcia, the epic love expert, here to help you get the relationships that go from to epic. And on today, I am so pumped. We have the amazing Holly Fair, and she is an extreme exemplary example of what it means to love yourself, to come into your worth, and to by default of coming into your worth and loving yourself, realizing that no matter what happened in the past, you can start a brand new future and attract really awesome people. So welcome to the stage, Holly.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So, how do you want to start today? Let's think about one of the stories that you were in an abusive relationship, and your relationship, unfortunately, had the abuse, but you also had the grace, the divinity, and the inner strength to leave it eventually. So, for all the listeners, so that they don't get into their abusive relationships, or maybe they need to get out of them, what are some of the worst things that happen that you're like, I can't believe this is my life?
I will focus on the relationship with my father. When I was a child, his father sexually abused me, and it carried on. My father was he felt like he was at fault. He couldn't look at me and think of anything but his shame and his guilt, and that proceeded on. He eventually left my mom and I, and when I was 13, and then the relationship was rocky and horrible. For years, into my late teens and 20s and even 30s, it was this just really beat up, extremely critical. I understand that I got my perfectionism from him. I learned I had to be perfect in order to keep him happy. And that, I know, is something that, now I'm working on releasing that. And for years that really hindered my ability to be authentically me, because I thought I had to be someone else. He was, verbally extremely abusive, super hypercritical of my weight and the just life choices. And I felt really small. Anytime I was around him, he would rehash all of the things that I ever did as a kid that were wrong, things that my mother did. And we couldn't have a relationship that was based on the here and now. It was always this. And now where I am, I understand that he was thrashing and beating himself up. He was projecting it onto me, of his lack, his failings as a parent, as a protector. Every time I would talk to him, I would cry, and I would feel ashamed and less than. And I would go off and on to where there were times when I yelled right back at him and told him what I thought of him and that I thought he was a creep. And, I won't go into all of the horrible names I called him, but I lashed back out, and that did no good. That just made it worse, because then he thought I was worse and got defensive and, was the gaslighting, and I wasn't like that. And I don't know what you're talking about. And so it's like, well, am I remembering this wrong? I swear that was what I was going through. And he got remarried multiple times after being with my mom. And one time I called him, it was on his birthday, and happy birthday, what are you doing? He said, oh, I'm getting married today. And I'm like, you're getting married? What? And yeah, I'm getting married. But you weren't going to invite me? Well, I didn't think you'd want to come. Well, yeah, I'd kind of like to be there. And so I went to the wedding, and it was awful because of the coldness, the awkwardness, the in my faceness of, well, he's going to have this new family with these teenagers. His wife had teenage girls. He's going to be raising them. And probably have better relationships, and I didn't have my daddy. And oh, great, this is lovely. I off and on tried to communicate, and then I ended up just deciding, nope, this isn't for me. And tried to communicate years later. I just decided that for my health, I could not have him in my life. It was too much stress. It was too much worry. Every time I talked to him, I would get upset and physically ill because I knew what was coming. So I didn't want to talk to him. And then I felt like a bad daughter because I wasn't calling him. And so I just, like tapped out. I thought, no, I'm not going to do this. And he didn't send me a birthday card one year, which for him, that was like, if you missed his birthday or a holiday, like that was like one of the biggest insults you could do. And so I thought, well, here's my chance. He didn't send a birthday card to me. I can cut this off. And so I did. And I didn't talk to him for many years. I got remarried, and he wasn't in my life. My husband knew that there was ugly stuff in the past, and that was in the past. 1 year at Thanksgiving time, this was about maybe 6-7 years ago, I thought, I wonder where he is. I wonder how he is. Maybe I'll give it another try. And so I did. And it was the same rehashing of, you didn't send me a birthday card, and, all of that. And you probably were mad because I didn't send you a birthday card, and just this. And he said, well, after the beat up, the psychological and verbal beat up, he's like, oh, well, do you want to get together and do dinner? And I said, no, I don't. I wish you well. I'm not interested. Thank you. But no, it doesn't work for me. And I ended it. That felt so freeing. And over those years, I've done a lot of inner work. I've figured out who I am inside and the beauty that I am. I didn't like myself, let alone love myself, for most of my life. It wasn't until the past 5-ish years that I've figured out, damn, like I'm amazing. Like I am a queen, and I can walk through my life with that knowing that I am good and beautiful and amazing just as I am. And it feels so good to come full circle. About 1.5 years ago, my dad called me out of the blue, and he said, I'm in a nursing home. I'd really like to see you. His wife, things have been bad with his wife. She put him in a nursing home and just has left him there. And he said, I miss you. I'd really like to see you. And I said, well, I'll think about it. And I thought about it. He's getting older, and it was one of those, well, if I don't try one more time, I may regret it. And so I went and I saw him, and he has been through therapy. He apologized right off and was crying and emotional and said, I am so sorry. I did you and your mom wrong. I'm ashamed. He said, I have lived a life that I deserved, and it's been bad. And I was moved, and I saw his sincerity. For once, he didn't rehash and go over and over and ruminate over all of the negativity. He owned his shit. And I took it in. And we both cried as I sat on his bed, and I gave him a hug, and I said, I forgive you. I do. I forgive you. And since then, we have been rebuilding our relationship. And it's really neat to see him in a light as an adult. He used to be so mean and hateful and nasty. And, he joked about, I like animals more than people. I don't like anyone. Well, yeah, no wonder. At this nursing home, everybody loves him. He's jovial, he's funny. Like all the nurses and aides love him. And the first time I was there and they're like, "Oh, your dad's our favorite." And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." And then as I see them with him and I'm going, they really do like him. They're not just making that up. And he was enjoyable. He is enjoyable. And I've been given such a gift through my own healing. I was at a place in my life where I was ready for that. I'd done the work on me. I liked myself when I went back and met with him. And I loved myself. And I was able to release all that anger and that hatred and that pent up sense of just ugh. And it it filled a place in my heart that I didn't know was there. I had thought, yeah, I'm better off, without him, and I was. For that time that we were estranged, it was what I needed to do. I needed to have that break and for both of us to grow and learn more. Um, I had the walls built. They were, masonry. The drawbridge was up, spackled over. Like there was no way in. And his genuine, sincere apology and his understanding that his actions had led to us not talking. I had not seen him in 20 years and I hadn't spoken to him in 7. And now we speak regularly. I go up and see him and hang out with him and take him places and things. I can say that my life feels more grounded and I've been able to be even more authentically me because I'm not denying that part of me.
I mean, that's such a powerful story of one, how quickly we can forgive, how we're like hardwired to forgive. And it doesn't mean that we forget or doesn't mean that we
Right.
allow, but that we're meant to be unified. We're meant for connection, and hatred and isolation, while necessary sometimes to protect yourself and to do your own healing. At the end of the day, for everyone listening, whether it's your parent or your child, you know, there might be a time where you need to leave and you need to be like, who am I without this person? Who am I not in relation to this individual that I love and care about and maybe you're related to? But at the end of the day, like we are really all 100% lovable. We are really all 100% hardwired for forgiveness, connection, resilience. And you are blessed with such a blessing to actually get to know your father in a healing state.
Yeah.
And so you had this horrible abuse from his father, and then him being so critical and just destroying your self worth with all of these horrible words and criticisms and confusions of truly who you are and how lovable you are. And so, how did that come into play with your adult marriage, your adult relationship that was very unhealthy?
Found that I had this ultra sensitivity to wanting a protector. And my husband, when he has 2 adult children, and his daughter moved in with us for a while early in our relationship, and it was 2 queen bees in a hive. It can be difficult. I was triggered. She was triggered, and I wanted him to stand up for me and take my side and like lay down the law, and he was like, I don't want anything to do with this. I love you both. And we had a lot of arguments. We ended up in counseling because I was so hung up on this. I didn't have a protector as a kid. And then the person who was my protector was so abusive and hateful that then I just desperately wanted someone to just stand up for me. And at the slightest inkling of someone not standing up for me, a man, that just
Trigger.
my a previous marriage ended because, well, I mean, there were a lot of reasons, but the turning point was really when his parents were being difficult and they were really nasty. We had a pretty ugly conversation, and I had wanted him to just say, look, you guys, I love her. Can't we please get along? Can't we all just get along? Just something. And he just sat there and let them berate me. And I mean, it don't need to go into the details, but it was ugly. It was really ugly. And at that point, I lost all respect and, ended that marriage. And which thankfully I'm in a beautiful relationship now. And I've worked through that need. I can be my own protector. I have a voice. My voice is worth hearing and is worth expressing. There was a long time that I felt that desperate need to be protected. And so, yeah, it caused some real rifts in our relationship that we had to seek counseling. And, they're still there a little bit. Sometimes I, want him to, did you stand up for me? And then it's like, okay, Holly, rewind here. And where is that really coming from? Is it him? Is he acting maliciously or negligently? No, totally he isn't. He's, being a great person. It's me that is hypersensitive to it. So, that's lessened over the years and thankfully we got through it.
So this is your current relationship
Mhm.
that you had a lot of sensitivity towards him not protecting you.
Mhm.
And what did that look like in actuality? Tell us a story where something happened and you thought he should do X, but he did Y, and your reaction.
It was really dumb stuff like she took my razors.
This is
Like
his daughter,
his
right?
daughter. Yeah, his daughter. She got in my personal stuff and took razor blades to shave her legs without asking. Okay, that's in the scheme of things, does that really matter? No. I felt violated though. I felt like she needed to be dealt with and she couldn't treat me like that. And so it wasn't anything that it wasn't like there was some creep that was breaking into our house that he needed to protect me from. Like and that's the thing is his essence is a protector. Like he has a hard time falling asleep unless he knows that I'm safe in bed and because he's like that's his essence. He's that knight in shining armor for me. It was the silly things like that then I let fester. And because he didn't talk to her about the razors, and he was always encouraging me to have the difficult conversations. Talk to her yourself, talk to her about, why she used the razors or please don't do that. Which I've gotten better with those kinds of conversations too, as I've understood that my voice is valuable and I can express it. At the time, I didn't really feel like it, and when I did, I would blow up. It wasn't anything that was conducive to a healthy relationship with her at that point. And then, it just built and built and she wouldn't flush the toilet. I mean, it was just dumb things that added up over time that because I didn't have the conversations, then I wanted him to, come to my rescue. And he was like, no, you're an adult. You can have the conversations and I love her too. And so he did the things, interesting enough, the thing that my ex-husband didn't do. He was like, I love you both, get along. Where I'd wanted the other husband to say that and he didn't. So isn't that wild that, and I've never put that together until right now, that he is then doing what I wanted him to, and it wasn't good enough. So I guess it was sort of it was a lose-lose because I wasn't healed within me.
Yeah, and there's also validity to that. I mean, I know that part of your healing is to take full responsibility. And I think 100% we should all take full responsibility for the fact that we need to, take control of our belief systems, how we talk to ourselves, the outcomes we want. But I'm listening to you speak, Holly, and I'm just going to be honest. I don't know if he was prioritizing your request.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
there was some of that.
as a relationship expert here,
Yes. Yes.
um,
Please tell
I'm
me.
not,
Tell me
which I'm
more.
not in role necessarily when I do podcasts, but I can't help but listen. And your request to have him speak to her as the one who has the rapport was so valid. And his dismissal of your request saying you deal with it is actually still neglect. It's still and what I teach to my clients is that neglect is a form of abuse. Like you see it in children, which you might understand. If a child's neglected, you can get them taken away.
Right.
Obviously, this is not an extreme example, but neglect of someone's needs is a form of abuse, even if it's mild. And so you're saying, I feel violated. She came into my area, she came into my purse or bag. She took something that didn't belong to her. She didn't ask permission nor apologize. And I'd like for you to have a conversation before I have our conversation because you're my safe spot. And she has the rapport with you because you're her safe spot. You're her father. And instead of him being like, you know what, Holly, I love you. I'm here for you. Let me know how I can help you. He dismissed you.
And as you're speaking, I wish I had had those words to, because I know that I was not conveying things in a way that he could hear them. I agree, and it was upsetting, and I still look back and go, I still wish that he would have been more on my side. And I know that I was approaching it from a very wounded, uh, also heightened emotional place to where I was probably attacking him.
But you were valid. Even if
Yeah.
you could have controlled yourself, even if you could have had a better delivery, which for
Hmm.
sure maybe work on that, you were valid. You were
Yeah.
violated. Something was taken from you that was yours without your permission from someone who's not you. That's called violation.
Yeah.
Even when my cute little 5 and 6-year-old come into my room and if like my 5-year-old pisses all over my toilet by accident because it's the middle of the night, I'm not upset with him, but I feel violated because it's my bathroom. Go piss all over the other bathroom. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there really is a sense of you validating yourself. And yes, you have a voice, and yes, you need to work on maybe the delivery of not being so upset. But it's like when women say, "Oh, I'm just getting my period." It's like your period is still all of your emotions. They're just
Right.
coming out stronger. They're not new, they're not distorted. They're just showing up fully.
Hmm.
And so I'm going to have to give you your validation on that because you deserve to be heard and protected because you're prioritized.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that really gives me something to think about.
I'm just
Thank
going to
you.
sit with that for a minute cuz
Yeah.
I think you need to give yourself even more credit of it's not his job to speak to her, but it actually is his job to prioritize you.
That's the prioritizing. Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
And that's what love truly is. It's when you don't have to worry, not if they're going to protect you, but to prioritize you, which means they don't control you and they care so much about the things that matter. And your wounds, they're beautiful and beloved. Like I'm in my almost ninth year of marriage. When in my first year of marriage, I was so like quacked. I had so much death and divorce that like I didn't want him to go to parties, to stay out late. I was like, after work, you just come home. If you're gonna go to an after work party, just come home. Like you can stay an hour or two, but I don't want to wait up because I was so anxious from so much abandonment that I just
Yeah.
didn't want him to be out for so long. And he didn't say, that's your shit. You need to manage that. You should go to more therapy. He was like, babe, he doesn't call me babe ever. He actually hates that term. He's like, Chaya, my name. Okay. And that was it. Okay. I love you. What time do you want me home?
Oh, that's beautiful.
But do you see the difference of you're an
Yeah.
adult, get your shit together versus I care so much about your wounds. Let me see how I can just make you feel safe, which with whatever real way, that's a true protector.
Yeah.
It's a soft leader
Hmm. Thank you. I've got some things to revisit with him
with you,
and with me. Yeah.
like what you'll allow.
Uh huh.
Well, what you'll criticize yourself on. That whole time you criticize yourself when I'm pretty sure you were in the right.
Thank you.
So, where do you want to go from here?
I would love to talk about just the beauty of healing and that journey.
Sure. So you put on your tiara. So part of your story is that you decided that even though you were effed up, you are still lovable and you're going to
Yes.
try to love up on yourself and feel your own worth and your value and find your voice. And part of that journey is putting on a tiara and like walking the walk so that it becomes, the talk, whatever the phrase is, walk the walk, talk the talk.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how has your journey of putting on a tiara and starting this little tiara movement or big tiara movement impacted your life? How did it start, and what are some of the lessons that you learned from it?
I was at a Tony Robbins event, Date with
Woo!
Destiny, in
Love it.
2018. Tony, he's like my hero. And I was in a place of deep depression and despair. I had lost a baby prior to that, and it was an ectopic pregnancy. That was crushing because I'd always wanted to be a mom, and I'd waited until the perfectionist, everything was in line, and on paper I was going to be the best mother ever, and it didn't happen. Lost the baby, and then we tried for another year and a half. Every treatment under the sun, spent several tens of thousands of dollars on treatments, and it at this point I was 42, and it's like, yeah, this is not going to happen. And I had to come to the realization and the acceptance that it wasn't in the cards for me. With that, during that time, I ended up, I cocooned myself in my bed. I slept most of the time away. I was working as a professor and I worked online. And I'd been doing it for enough years that I could kind of just phone it in. Frankly, I'll own up to that. So I would roll out of bed, put on something on the top, do my lectures from the bed on my laptop, grade their papers and things, and, just did the bare minimum. And I gained a lot of weight. I was extremely depressed, and I was on antidepressants, and, they didn't help. I was grieving. All of the feelings of the self-doubt and the inadequacies of a child, I wasn't worthy to be protected. At that age, my sexuality was tainted and was taken then. So, oh, well, now I can't be a mom, no wonder I'm broken down there. All of that, as erroneous as it was, kept flooding back. And I, my husband, he felt like he didn't have a partner. He'd lost a baby and he'd lost his wife because I was pretty much non-responsive. And I saw the Tony Robbins documentary, I'm Not Your Guru, on Netflix in one of my Netflix induced, comas. And I'm like, babe, you have to watch this with me. We watched it and I said, we're going. And we're taking the kids. So we took his adult kids. That was in August, and the next December is when Date with Destiny happens. And we went, and on the last day, I got called up on stage to do a process and an intervention. And I mean, talk about life changing. That was it. Was up, in front of this audience, and because I go into depression, he said, okay, for you to get out of this, anger is going to be your fuel to, push back. And he had me ranting and raving on stage of what I'd lost, and what I had, what my future would look like, and I don't want that, and it's bullshit. It's a bullshit story. And he at one point asked, he said, what would you have to forget to go back to living that life? And out of nowhere, I said, I would have to forget that I'm a queen. And on stage, and this is in front of 5,000 people, and they're all standing on their chairs cheering for me and, screaming for me. I crowned myself and I walked across that stage, with my own scepter, and I owned it. At 276 pounds, I owned that stage. And to the point where Tony was even cracking up. He's like, wow. The interesting thing is he now plays my intervention now, since things have gone to the online world, the virtual world since 2020. At each Day with Destiny event, he shows that intervention. I knew my big goal was I wanted to lose 100 pounds. That was, the big thing, because I knew I'm not healthy, this isn't good. And so I got a personal trainer, I got a dietitian, a nutritionist. I ended up exchanging the addiction of food for working out for a while, which served me at the time. It wasn't sustainable. And so, I was able to back off. And for fun, we were on a trip to Paris, and I had got this crown, and I thought, oh, it'll be fun to take some pictures, like a photo ops. And I got such neat reactions from people. They're like, oh, wow, that's cool. Oh, hey, that's neat. That I thought, yeah, this could be a fun experiment. I'm going to wear it for a month. And so for a month, I wore it everywhere. I wore it to the gym. I wore it out running. I wore it to the grocery store, doing yard work, you name it. Unless it was like yoga or I was sleeping, I had it on. And I realized that because this is like all glitzy, people were staring at me in the grocery store or where at Costco, wherever I was. And it was such a counterbalance to me being hidden and, packing on the weight and literally, shielding myself. I had to show up. People were looking at me. Therefore, I'm going to make eye contact. I'm not going to do the, wow, hello. And then I would get conversation. People, I got a lot of, is it your birthday? Or, are you in a beauty pageant or whatever? And then I'd get to say, I'm living my queen life, and we're all queens. I'm not the queen, I am a queen. And it's not ruling over people, it's ruling over your own destiny, to me, is what a true queen is. A queen is graceful, she's abundant, she is loving, she nurtures those around her. She lifts other people up. She already knows her greatness. She doesn't need to diminish it or anything of anyone else. To me, a beautiful, good queen, she helps others when someone else's crown is, askew or is dirty. She helps shine it and put it on. And, that's women. We are so, villainized for not being the perfect moms, wives, bodies, jobs, all of those things. And it's up to us to help each other, lift each other up. I'm a big proponent for, you see a pretty woman, you see someone that's got a great outfit on, you say it, tell them. It doesn't diminish my worth by telling you are a gorgeous woman. Like, I love, and I mentioned before, I love your coloring and, what you've done. Wow. And some people, it's the erroneous thought of, oh, well, I can't say nice things about someone else because then, that makes me less. No, it's the opposite. I feel good when I am uplifting others. And it was a month, and then I'm like, oh, let's go 3 months. And then, oh, I'll try a year. We traveled the world. We went to Paris, we went to Egypt, we went to South Africa, on different vacations, and I wore it to all of those places. And it was kind of fun. In Egypt, especially, I got mobbed by children. We'd be walking in like the parks, and all these kids would come up and want their picture taken with me. I guess they thought I was a celebrity or something. But it sparked joy for others, and it sparked joy for me. And so I'm at the gym and I'm doing like my dance club cardio. And originally I found myself like, I get the face of, when I'm like trying hard, and I was trying hard to learn the moves, and I, wasn't quite with the beat, and what am I doing next? And I caught a glimpse of myself, sort of doing that. And I'm like, ooh, I don't like that. I don't like that look. my old story was nobody likes me, nobody wants to be my friend. And I'm thinking, who wants to be my friend? Like the friend of somebody's, like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to smile. And so I started smiling in that class so that when I looked at the mirror as I'm, doing the moves, I appreciated the girl, the woman smiling back at me. And other people noticed and were like, oh, wow, you're so happy. And then that just infused me with more energy and more excitement to smile more and to show up and to have conversations. And it went for just under 2 years that I wore it every single day. Everywhere I went, it became, part of me. And then it got to where I thought, okay, I am now walking as a queen. And so I took it off. And now I wear it for fun, for photos, for, branding, things like that. And I know that just on my own, I enter a room as a queen, and people without the crown on will even say, wow, you've got some queen energy. And I'm like, thank you. I
They
do.
say that? They use that
Yes,
word?
I've heard that a lot. And I'm like, yeah, I built this woman. Like, I am proud of who I am today. And Tony Robbins, I mentioned that he's playing my intervention. I'm now in his organization, I'm a trainer. And I've gone, yeah, thank you. Yeah. I've gone back to several of the Date with Destiny events, and he's had me up virtually for a few years, and then on stage the past couple of years. He'll call me up on stage, and so he'll play the intervention, and Holly's here now. Holly, come to the stage, and I will run up, to the stage, and I have lost 145 pounds. So it's one of these jaw-dropping moments for the participants because the woman that was ranting on the screen was massive and unhealthy, and yet I still had the same spunk. Like that was in me. That was always authentic. I saw my opportunity to change and to take control of my life, and I grabbed it with both hands. And so now I am speaking on his stage. I've facilitated an event for him, and I'm living a dream life. I get to work with women, coaching them to help them find the queen. And for not everyone identifies with the queen archetype. Some, it's the empress, or it's the Amazon, the Amazonian. It's different for everyone, and figuring out, okay, what is it? What part of you do you know is inside you that if you show up more as that, you can now be in the full expression of yourself. Do that, and I speak on stages and share my message, and it's really empowering to be able to go from, yeah, I was broken, I was fucked up, didn't like myself, and had that just wallowing and wanted to die. There were times when I didn't think life was worth living, and thankfully I'm here, and I got through it, and everyone can get through it. We can all get through it. We need a little guidance, a little help, support along the way. And so I'm honored to be able to be that support for other people, other women.
What a beautiful blessing of a bridge that God just planted in your life. I mean, even in the midst of your sorrow and your brokenness and your 300, almost 300-pound
Yeah.
body and the depression, like there was a spark of the Tony Robbins Guru, Netflix show. And there was a spark of, maybe I don't have to kill myself with food or depression. Maybe I am potentially worth living. And you are such an example of, so much blessing. I just met Kevin Haynes. I'm probably mispronouncing his last name, but he jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, and almost 99.9% of people who jump off the bridge don't make it.
Yeah.
And so he jumped, and the person passing happened to have a friend who was the Coast Guard working at that time. So she called her Coast Guard friend right then.
Whoa.
And so he went 40 feet under, and a sea lion, Holly, kept him afloat. I'm going to cry. And a sea lion kept him afloat to the top of the water. And then the Coast Guard finally came and saved him. And I'm like listening to your story, and everyone, no matter how fucked up, no matter how scared, no matter the sexual molestation, the rape, the murder, the crazy, everyone has a crazy story. That's why
Yeah.
this podcast exists, because everyone's fucked up. You can't find one adult who doesn't have some shit that they've gone through and that they're not proud of or could be ashamed of or wish they, wouldn't have happened to them. But if we can believe that we're 100% lovable, that we're a queen or a king or still deserving of good, and to find those sparks in the darkness to have them become a flame,
Right.
there's so much life after darkness. There's so much life after the depression. There's so much life after the horrible marriage or whatever you've gone through. And so your story are just these like little sparks, like a wildfire in a good way,
Yeah.
in a great way, that came together to ablaze your life, in the sense that you could have ended your life, but you chose to hold on. And so for everyone who is listening to this podcast, first of all, you're blessed. Good God put you here. And this is for you to know that it's not over. Like Tony Robbins always says, which I use in all of my work and my masterminds and speeches, your past does not predict your future.
Exactly.
And Holly is such a gorgeous example of a woman who was broken from depression and losing a baby and losing her identity and the future of what you thought you would be, to becoming a speaker on Tony Robbins'
Yeah.
stage. It's like so cool. And it's just an amazing proof that we are lovable, that we are destined for greatness. And we just have to make a decision. I choose to be a queen, or I choose to be a king. Like I choose, whoever is listening, like my identity no longer is one that allows suffering. I am bigger and deserving and more better than that.
Yeah. Thank you so
It's just
much.
so cool.
Oh,
And I hope you wake up every day in so much gratitude. You know, everything of life always has its duality.
mhm.
With darkness comes light, with good comes bad. That's just the way God created the world. And we have the opportunity to wake up and refocus our minds on our gratitude instead of getting upset about what's not working.
Right.
So I hope, Holly, that you remember that God just blessed you with so many sparks. So many women and men die without ever having that forgiveness that you got from your father. So many people have them die after 20 years of not seeing them, and then live their whole adult life with anger and confusion and intimacy issues and emotional distance because they're holding on to shame or guilt
Right.
that screws up what they allow and attract in their relationships. And you are blessed with forgiveness.
I am blessed. And I also, I've made peace and am grateful for the baby I lost.
That's hard.
Her name was Aurora. And she's with me and she's visited me. And she's told me that she came for just that short little time to get me on the path. And that I had my mission was bigger than her. My mission, I would affect more people's lives without her than being a mom to one. And so that understanding and that love, it's still, Mother's Day is still a poignant time, is still tender. And I know that I'm grateful for that experience because I am now able to give love and to show up. And I found me in the process, and she helped me find me. She crowned me. She gave me that crown.
She did.
Yeah.
And it's like you get to mother so many women now and men. And like your loss of her still was coming into the role of being a mom, because you lost the pain of feeling like a failure, and you came into a role of I am a queen. I uplift other women. I take care of other women. I'm inspiring other people. So you actually have become a mom.
Yeah. It just looks a little bit
It,
different
it
than I
just
had
looks
expected.
different.
And it's a beautiful, it's beautiful.
And one of the things that, what brought me into changing, the women's lives that I've been blessed to change was through one specific breakup where I was in love and he left me to go snort ketamine. And I
Ah,
thought, how did I attract this? I was 26, I was attractive, I had 2 degrees, straight A's, I had all the perfect societal things you're supposed
right.
to have a good life. And the guy at the time left me and I asked myself, how did I attract this? And I didn't blame him. Like, he's the addict, he's the asshole. What's wrong with him? It's like, how did I attract this? And what do I need to do in my life never to repeat this? And so it was an exorbitantly like painful time in my life.
I can imagine.
Uh, oh, so much pain. But through the pain birthed my entire identity. I now help hundreds and thousands of women through social media learn the signs of addiction and narcissism on date number one. I help
Fabulous.
hundreds of women out of abusive marriages and relationships, and the ones who are out of them to know the signs of themselves and the men that they never repeat it.
Yes.
But it was through the pain that birthed my transformation. It was through your pain that birthed your transformation. And so I always say you have to take your pain and make it your pleasure, and take your traumas and make them your treasures.
I like that. Can I quote you on that? That was
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes, on stage together at Tony's.
Okay, I will. I will. That was great. That was beautiful.
And like we have to love that pain and not drown in it, but be like my literal friend Kevin, who had a sea lion raise him to the surface and be like, you know what? I do want to die right now, but my past doesn't predict my future. And I can use this pain as my pleasure and my traumas as my treasures, have my mess be my message that I'm going to share with so many people so that my life is so filled and full of meaning and love.
Well said.
So, Holly, where can people find you?
Find me on fireuplife.com. That's FIREUPLIFE.com. You can email me at Holly, HOLLY, at fireuplife.com. And I'd love to meet with you, with anyone. I'm available for speaking as well as coaching, one on one coaching, and have programs to help women, different price ranges to support. Just love on you and become their biggest cheerleaders.
I love that. I love that. So, guys, this has been another powerful beyond words episode of the 100% podcast, where yes, you are 100% effed up, but you are still simultaneously 100% lovable, and nothing that anyone has done to you or that you've done even diminishes 1% of how lovable you are and how truly deserving of only good you are. So thank you so much, Holly. I'm your host, Chaya Garcia, Epic Love Expert, for you to get your relationships from ed to epic, and I will see you on the next episode.